Good day to you. This is Anagalactic bringing you another presentation in cosmic science. Please pardon the garb. I'm just going to wear these dark glasses temporarily so you are not completely shocked by my eyes. I have a bit of asthma. I'm okay, but the hat is to prevent the reflection. And the reason I'm looking askance is because when I look right at the screen, you see there's a reflection. Without the hat, we get that. All right. So this is the professor's true appearance. I'm awful sorry about the eyes. Well, now that I've drawn perfect attention to my eyes, let's draw some much better directed attention over here to this LibreOffice document. This is going to be somewhat different of a presentation because I want to give you a wealth of information at a lot of levels. The first thing I want to impart, because I deal with all levels of science, for progress, so you actually get something. You're not trying to just pass a test or make a living. You're trying to complete yourself as a human being. So the first thing I'm going to do is something that used to irritate me. When I see some of my favorite presenters just glugging water just shamelessly, even making sounds into the microphone, well, you need to drink a lot of water. It's extremely important if you're a scientist to just pathetically, just carry water with you everywhere, just drink it right in front of people. Just always be running off to get more water, and it doesn't have to be water. Drink a ton of water. Always look your best if you're a presenter. If you're a rational scientist, you're supposed to be improving yourself as a human being. Okay, that's why we do science. Don't ever be fooled by technology. Don't be fooled by universities. Don't be fooled by professors or even books. You can't be a scientist and a sycophant. And you can't be a scientist and a survivor. They don't go together. Of course, you're not going to be a scientist long if you're not a survivor, but they are separate. And when they're mixed, it shouldn't lead to trouble. You should be able to make a living at science. Faraday did. I mean, but all of these men started out as postal clerks or janitors or just dying, just orphans. There's a great story about Fraunhofer, about if you're interested in spectral lines and history. Dr. Alexander Unziker insists that you have to study scientific history. And I don't mean just in school and then just forget it. You actually have to study it as part of science, the history of it, so that you know the continuity. If you don't know where your scientific ideas came from, how do you know that they're even on the right track? Now, normally that won't matter because things will be obvious. In other words, you and I are perfectly capable of crediting the new information just discovered within the past few centuries that the sun actually does not fly around the earth. But I want you to take careful notice of something that's left out of our educational system about that fact. There's actually several lessons that can be learned from that. That is, that for the longest time, at least in what was called Middle Age Europe, human beings assumed that the sun went around the earth. Well, you would certainly think so. I mean, it certainly is not an insane idea. And this is going to be a multi-level presentation, so forgive me for switching tracks a lot. That's actually one reason I'm making this video, is to test some new technology. I have some very interesting things to show you, but I also want to be sure that I cover a lot of ground quickly. And if you compress time into, for instance, 3 years, that could either be considered a long time or a short time. Why? Because it depends on your frame of reference for time. Time always has a frame of reference. So does space. Let's get right into it. I'm going to keep switching tracks. I hope that doesn't throw you. I will be coming back to any of my unfinished statements or illusions. But I do want to get to the meat or the gist or the center or the reality or just plain consciousness, the consciousness of what you came here to get. Ask yourself, why are you watching this video? And be serious. Because I'm going to tell you why you're watching this video. But that's a little bit presumptuous of me, isn't it? That could be considered offensive, to tell you why you're doing what you're doing. Not to in any way confront or balk you, but rather to encourage you in the direction that you're already going. It's extremely important to understand in your own mind why you're doing science. And the reason I say that is extraordinarily practical. It's a practical reason why you would do that. It's because those around you are going to fade behind you. I play chess, and I was a tournament chess player, and I've played some very, very good chess, although I myself am not very good. The game is fun. I also have played Go for 55 years. I am 70, so I can claim that. I began playing when I learned the game when I was 14. So I've been playing a lot of games. I also play games, and this is typical. I'm just telling you in a sense that I'm typical, but I'm emphasizing that. Why do we do that? Go to sports. I've done several, I don't want to say books, but very long tracts. A monograph is usually how I would say something shorter than a book. But perhaps, well, why wouldn't you say essay? Because that can be fiction. But a monograph is supposed to be on science or something rational. You have to ask yourself why you're doing science for a very serious reason. It's cutthroat competitive, and this time, those of you who know me know that I get cantankerous about industrial science and, in fact, university science. I don't like the way science is taught. I think our educational system needs a complete, overhaul. But we still have to survive. You know what? We survive in two different ways. One of them is emotional, because you don't want to die. If we had no fear of death, there would be no survival of anything. We wouldn't have this idea of you've got to be all you can be, and you've got to stand up for yourself. Now, all of these aphorisms have application, but what about in science? Well, what is science? Well, what is science for you? I guarantee you, whatever science ends up being for you or is already, it's not going to be any of your peers that share your ideas. This cutthroat competitive. And to complete these thoughts, I want to point out that if it's for money, it is cutthroat. I mean, literally, your throat will be cut if you're not fucking careful. Because when men are seeking money, they're competitive in an immoral way. You can't possibly be seeking money and be a moral man. Now, we're all forced to. Well, we're all forced to be immoral. It's as simple as that. And if you don't like that, you could tone it down. When you speak philosophically, there's one reason scientists don't like to speak philosophically, is because it spreads out on a spectrum of what ultimately are levels. Now, when I talk about competition, there's an extremely unhealthy competition that exists on Earth. And of course, man is affected. Well, lions jump on Bambi's mother, or whatever ate Bambi. I actually walked out. It's the first movie I ever walked out of. I may have been so young I wasn't crawling, but this is a long time ago. I knew that Bambi's mother was going to get hit. It was gruesome. My sisters haven't recovered. I've spoken with both of my sisters recently and asked them, You remember I left. I would not watch Bambi get whacked. Although, see, I thought it was going to be Bambi. That's how young I was. I hadn't realized you can't whack Bambi if she's the star. Well, Bambi's mother got it, okay? I don't like that shit. Well, that's survival. And so men do the same thing to each other. Today, and for quite a while, by the millions. It's interesting to look up how many massacres of man against man have resulted in millions of deaths. Of course, the communists, I don't see how... Well, I don't see how anyone could beat the record of the communists, which goes to hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions. I count casualties differently than government information centers do. Anyone who's locked up in a university learning calculus against their will is simply a slave in training. So if that's what you want to be, when I say it's competitive, your life depends on how you adapt to science, so-called. Well, let me tell you something about that science. That's an extremely tiny fraction of science. I'm sorely tempted to say that it's not science at all. That's what you get in universities, is anti-science. Is exactly what you don't want to be done to you. Is forced to learn calculus against your will. I tried several times over the decades to force myself to learn calculus. I was simply incapable of it, but I perfectly understand it now. I could use calculus more accurately than most mathematicians, because I finally figured out for myself what the calculus is. And holy shit. I mean, you can develop an attitude in science about how you've been raped, how you've been lied to, how you've been traduced as a human, how you've been murdered, mentally, morally, and in other ways. It's remarkable what goes for science. But when it finally spins out of control, as it is now, you look for something that's actually science, and then ask me what I think of it. Well, nobody's going to interview me, not for a while. And now I want to switch tacks again. Let me finish my story about competitiveness. I'm a scientist, but I am not a competitive man. I'm not, huh? I don't think of myself as competitive, but I have to be quite specific. I don't think of myself as being cutthroat competitive for survival. I'm simply not. Now, my friends, as they grew up, knew that. I've always been like this. I'm non-cutthroat competitive. I simply won't go that far. Not even for money. Of course I caved in. Otherwise I wouldn't have survived. And what I found out is my story is not only not unusual. Everybody, every single human, including your daddy, okay, was run through the fucking mill of survival, which means money. Money is survival, you understand. They're synonymous terms. Nobody knows where money comes from, by the way. Henry Miller wrote an essay called What Makes Money Make Money? What a wit. He's right up there with George Carlin, and I am not fooling around. All right, he's also up there with Dave Chappelle. And we're talking about some monstrously good and wonderful people. But you listen to Dave Chappelle. I say talk with him. Well, I don't know if I would actually. Well, I know I'd be comfortable talking with Dave Chappelle if we were introduced, but I don't picture myself talking with Dave Chappelle. But for a moment there, I was saying, if you do talk with Dave Chappelle about his own life, fucking was run through the mill too. So was George Carlin. George Carlin actually has an interesting story that's similar to mine, which we are unusual. I would say George and I have this one thing in common, which is just, circumstantial. I'm not putting myself up with George Carlin. In fact, putting us both kind of in our place, He puts himself in his place quite clearly. He had it easy. He knew what he wanted to do. In fact, Dave Chappelle also had it easy in a way. But but I think George Carlin was saying it correctly when he basically confessed that he knew so quickly what he wanted to do that he wasn't subject to the same trauma as the rest of us. But I was. But not to the same degree. Well, he was too. We're all subject to the same trauma, but not to the same degree or extent or length or intensity. And there's other, I mean, you could talk about this for a while, but I'm actually talking about being competitive. Dave was forced to learn about money. George and I, not quite the same. George Carlin and I. We're both from the same islands. Basically, Dave Chappelle is from, well, we're all from Turtle Island now. We're all born here. But of course, George Carlin claims to be from Ireland, and I believe him. I claim to be from Ireland too, because all the Scottish people, not all, but in the main, the Scottish people are descended from the Irish people. My mother would rise from her grave and chase me with her hairbrush. It's the one thing that would rile her. So, Mom, this is nothing about you. I told you I'm going to all levels. And again, I apologize for the eyes. You know what? See, when I put these on, then there's a reflection. Look at that. Okay, I hope you can put up with it because I'm tired of looking at my own eyes. All right, it's making me tired. So I'm just... And you need to drink a lot of water. I told you, all levels. But I want to show you something to show you I'm not just being frivolous right now. Although, I think you can tell I am. We got this. We got to do some GeoGebra. Man, I've gotten more requests for GeoGebra than for anything else. It's like, I just use this as a tool, but now, of course, now that I know that people like it, I get a lot of views when I show GeoGebra. So we're going to have it in two forms. You can have it too, and you should have it. If you want to learn science, I would say you can do without it. I did without it. But actually, I don't know why I've been doing without it, because it's very apt at enabling the kind of things that I need to show you. So we're going to have a lot of GeoGebra, and you're going to learn a lot. Because when I show the GeoGebra, I show you what I'm doing. And that's part of this experiment, is I want you to see what I do when I have no blueprint. This is totally freeform, except there's some things I want to get to. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn this on. All right, that's GeoGebra, but that's my desktop version. In other words, I downloaded the program. You can too. This is remarkable that it's totally open source, but if you trace it to see where it came from, it's actually in India now. They have GeoGebra, they own it. But they're so generous, they just let anybody use it. They do make money because they sell licenses to schools who use this collaboratively. I would have to say probably in India. And the Indian nation, this is very embarrassing for an American Westerner to have to talk about Indians from India. Because if you say Indians long enough, any American will just be hypnotized and think you're talking about Redskins. You know, Dave Chappelle has a really good story. I love comedians, okay? I hope you enjoy these dark glasses just reflecting. I don't like it. But which is better? I think. Yeah, I think we'll just leave it this way, won't we? I look stoned. By the way, when I am stoned, I've always turned ruby red. Like I'm from something from the depths of the earth. I mean, look at this. Actually, I might as well be stoned, because this is exactly what I would look like when I was stoned. I can't stand it. I look at my eyes and go, oh, that's just not fucking human. So what I was saying was scientists are competitive, but it's not intentional. But you have to learn at my stage, at my phase, at my level. God, I don't know which is worse. We're gonna have to just because now it's both. Might as well just. I think I look kind of. Although it looks like I'm reviewing some spaceship before it takes off from a mountain. I'm deep inside the bowels of the earth, and this is the only light we have is this hideous light. I'm looking into some screen, of course, like Dave Bowman going through time. Oh, let's start there. But before we do, I wanted to show you something else. We have, first of all, this is GeoGebra again, but this is the online version. And you can do this too. And you can do both and get confused, as I did. But what I'll show you, because you have to store your work, I have dozens and dozens and dozens of GeoGebra drawings because I used it for my studies. Because it's geometry, it's unfreaking believable. And you can see the way over. By the way, I think I have a pointer in this. In fact, let's try this. I'm going to go switch screens now. And oh shit, that's not actually the one. I don't know what that is. Okay, I told you this is freeform. This might be, oh, you know what it is? It's another shot. Okay, I have the desktop version. Hold on, we're getting there. Okay, that's the desktop version. Oh yeah, I have two of the same thing. Okay, that's Marvy. But then we have this. This is actually online. And I can demonstrate that to you by using my controls here. And I'm going to recenter this. And I'm going to option drag. This is OBS. And now you can see a little bit more, can't you? This is all my stuff over here. Oh, hey, I don't take photographs of that. Sell my stuff down on the docks, huh? Why, you bums. Now, so I'm just showing you what I'm capable of showing you. A lot of this I've just discovered, and some of it is revolutionary from my minor point of view. I can fill up the whole screen, and now we can have a complete... I could even turn off this, which is the antigalactic. Okay, so now, you see we just have a pure screen here. The reason I'm faltering is the response in OBS when you turn something on, it doesn't select it. So I have dozens of times dragged the wrong box. Okay, I just turned it off because I'm getting sick of that, aren't you? I'm sorry about that. But let's return to this, and then we'll close this off at a half an hour. I'm going to give a series of presentations today. Today is just 2 days before Thanksgiving. Here in Chico, California, it seems like the election hullabaloo has died down. I totally missed it. I missed my shot at fame, being the next Hunter S. Thompson. I'm too busy. So I want to complete my story about being competitive. You have to be competitive if you want to study with me. And I say that somewhat, it's attitudinal in the full sense. You have to be competitive. And here's the reason why. And I'm just going to say up front that I'm sure you're going to agree with me. But I think it's also going to surprise you just how obvious certain things are. But if you don't ever think about them, you're not responding correctly. And this takes time. It takes experience. I am speaking from the point of view of experience. And the reason I said 3 years is the time span, because humans have time spans within time spans, which is finite. It runs out and then you're dead. So it is a race, just as it says in the New Testament scriptures, if you've ever heard of them. Some people I talk with these days who are in their 30s actually are not sure which books of the Bible are in the Old Testament or New Testament, revealing a depth of ignorance that's just unfathomable to someone of my age. It's like not knowing. It's like not lowing Natin. It's like lot lowing Natin 2 centuries ago. Everyone spoke Latin 2 centuries ago, or you're not freaking educated. Well, nobody speaks Latin now. Literally no one. Literally. Literally means it's not actual necessarily. It's just literarily. Now we use it the opposite. Same thing happens in science. Drink a shitload of water. It's how we talk in America. If you catch yourself, you analyze the stuff you say, drink a fuck of a lot of water. That actually makes more sense. Depending on your leanings on drinking things. I'm an American all the way. Even with this nasty reflection that makes me look like Dave Bowman going through the Stargate. By the way, that's the first 4 square numbers, except the 4th one goes into imaginary space. Don't think Arthur C. Clarke didn't know that. He's an excellent mathematician. I used to say when I was young, because I heard some factoid, that he worked on the Sputnik. I don't know. I wasn't very scientific when I was young. In fact, I think I was anti-scientific. Although I freaking love nature and love to learn about, like, I saw the DNA and I'm like, that's so great that I don't want to understand it. I just want to look at it and go, I will probably never want to understand that. Well, you don't want to like predict the future, because now I do. Well, I always did, but I didn't think I could. Now I could, but I'm too busy with astrophysics and the quantum paradox. That's remarkable for me to say now. And so you have to understand, I've changed. I'm no longer the nice Bible thumping pacifist of some strange cult from out of the freaking desert of America. And no, I wasn't LDS. I don't think anybody in their right mind. You have to be born into it. It's like being a Jew. You know, you're Jewish, yeah, well, you know, we're all sorry. Or you're Irish, well, that's a whole nationality, not even a religion, but it's worse. I'm Irish. We're called the Black Irish. That means Scottish. But see, that's an inside joke, because everybody's competitive, but you also want to drink beer together. So that's why we laugh. Heaven or God or the great karmic cosmos projected laughter into us so we could survive, but not to make money. I do believe that money is good because it helps you make transactions. But when it's also used to turn you into a slave, well, now it's not working for you. It's working to destroy you, which is the situation, unfortunately. So it is safe to say that everybody out on the internet, including all the tops, Lex Friedman, Kurt Mongo, just go right to the top. But there are exceptions. Sir Roger Penrose, being a man of 93, and I'm sure he's comfortable in life. I would pray to God. I'm sure that he is, but you got to think about that. Not everybody is. Neil deGrasse Tyson isn't. If Neil deGrasse Tyson were to slow down at all, he'd lose everything. It's like being a shark. You have to keep going forward. That's capitalism. Democracy is based on capitalism. I did absorb this information. It's not like I ever studied political science. Who in their right mind would study political science? First of all, it's not science. And second of all, what the hell are you trying to prove? I mean, you realize you're going to die, right? I ask this question seriously. So if you're doing science and you're not doing it for the highest purpose of all, well, I really, really think poorly of you. I will certainly look down on you. In another place and another time, I'd kick sand in your face. I don't like you if you're not doing science for the highest purpose, which is for yourself. Science is not for humanity. Your humanity, darling, honey, baby. It's now I'm a director. Let's see if my eyes have gotten better. You know, if I open them wider and lean backwards, I've noticed. Look at that. I look like a pinhead. Isn't that amazing? You hate eggheads? It's an egghead. I've been told I have a large head. Well, you know what else? All right. You judge that by the nose. Salvador Dali called that the limousine. He would talk with his wife, Gayla, who's Ukrainian. I know, right? What a small universe. My wife was Ukrainian. Well, she died of cancer, if you wanted to ask. Well, that's why I do science. So I am doing it for the highest purpose. It's to not go insane. I don't see any higher purpose. There's no guarantee that I would have gone insane, but I didn't take any chances, because after she died, I said to myself, well, I'll keep working. Because she made me vow that I wouldn't quit my job. But I don't remember those 9 months of still working. I don't remember one single day. I got good reviews. I know I was doing well. And I also found out that I had a 401k. I had no idea. And so I discovered I had $18,000 during this blackout period of just showing up for work 8 hours a day. It was at Verizon, when it was still called Verizon Wireless. And I was in the elite division of customer service, well known. We had a whole floor all to ourselves. We dealt with data, not regular customer service, no, data, which was just becoming big. Anyway, that's when my wife died of cancer. The Ukrainian girl. And Salvador Dali would speak to Gayla, his Ukrainian wife, about the limousine. He say, see that guy's hands, how big they are? He must have a comfortable limousine. I thought, that's an artist. He doesn't say fuck and screw and cock and vagina, which just the word. That's a Latin word, by the way. And we were talking about Ruger Josip Bošković knew Latin because he lived 250 and more years ago. Actually, he died 250 years ago. That's pretty close. 1711 to 1771, if I got that right. Well, it was a little older than that. He died unhappy. He was competitive. He was the greatest scientist in Europe. He went to England. He was inducted into the Royal Society immediately. They just loved him. But nobody remembers him or anything that he said. You know why? Because of Newton. Tell me, write a one-page or just one paragraph what you know about Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, who also spoke Latin. You see the point? Latin, yeah. Well, not English, Latin. Because it was mostly continental Europe. Germany had not yet risen to try to conquer Europe twice. Germany tried to conquer Europe twice. So this is well, to speak of the black Irish, I think you can see that the Scottish are not usually blonde, although we have our share of blondes, because we were raped by the Vikings. Well, so were the Irish. The Vikings raped everybody. Just land on the shore, just kill anybody that gets in the way. They just rape the daughters, just rape them, and then go pillage the town. And then take off back to Viking land. So we are competitive. We're very competitive creatures, cutthroat competitive. And now we kill each other by the millions. Well, that's really hard to overlook, but the take home for a scientist, let's pause there. I will eventually be talking with scientists who call themselves scientists in a different context than is proper. Only my point of view of science is accurate and correct. Because I can pigeonhole the industrial scientists. I can pigeonhole the mathematicians. Is it unfair? Of course it's unfair. That doesn't make any difference. You're not like getting a hammer and start smashing these men's toes. You're simply pointing out what the living devil they are. What are they actually doing? Well, everyone loves to throw in as much philosophy as is needed to make them look like a good guy. That's not how it works in science. That's not how it works in rational logic. We're not interested in your stories. We need results. What results? What do we need? What do you need? Have you ever asked yourself that seriously? What do you want from science? Well, let me tell you what you're going to get from me. Because this is automatic with me. Yes, I will give you quantum gravity. Yes, I will give you the collapse of the wave function. Yes, I will break through all the barriers that are currently holding back layman science. So let's begin there. Layman, not paid. You don't make money off of it. That's just the law of the jungle, dearie. You're making money at science, are you? Well, then you are absolutely discreditable. You're not doing the right thing. You're a slave. And that's just too bad. However, the game is much thicker than that. Because in order to reach where you need to be, I'm speaking about myself strictly, but I'm projecting it onto you because this is what you should be doing, is the way I'm doing science. You've got to switch to my way if you haven't already. If you don't, then you're a goner. We don't go back and pick up people who fall over the aft. You miss out on science, you drown. We just wave goodbye, turn around, while you scream, bubble, and drown. Neil deGrasse Tyson is simply not a scientist. Lex Fridman, in no way is Lex Fridman a scientist. It's all or nothing here. Either you are or you're not. And you have to be ruthless with these bastards. Ruthless with them. And you will suffer for it too, if you're serious. If you don't make mistakes, I mean even ethical mistakes, actually stepping on someone's toes, and then finding out later that you really weren't required to do that. That really wasn't part of even your own script. You just blew your stack and freaked out at one of these slaves. Yes, you're right. There's different ways of hanging yourself by being right. You have to be much more than just right in this world. In science, I'm always speaking from the point of view of a full-grown man. Unlike Lex, unlike Neil, unlike Michio Kaku, unlike Leonard Susskind, unlike Dr. Sabina Hassenfelder. And I'm tempted to add to the list. But the more I add to the list to impress you with what does not impress me, the more I'm hanging myself by the neck. Because I'm completely ignoring another side of science, which is that it's 100% part of being human. 100% part of being human. And I have got to change my attitude daily back to the correct way of looking at things. Which is not that these men and women are somehow off the trail. They're not. If it's looked at the right way, that's entirely up to me. I will confess that I have been over this in my mind so many times now, just in the past 3 years, that I am convinced that I must actually be schizoid on this subject. And I intend to be fully schizoid. That is, I will switch freely. But one of the reasons I feel entitled to do that is there's no context. There is no actual human. I have never in my life, not even once, discussed real science with another man. Another man. Yeah. Man. Yeah. This is the society we live in now. You can't even say man anymore without having to stop and explain yourself. I remember the homo hunt. It is right about high school it started. In fact, Mad Magazine ran a serial comedy strip on this. The homo hunt. Well, for Mad Magazine, it was actually Jew hunt. They were trying to identify all the Jewish people in the world that you would never have suspected was Jewish. Mad Magazine, which is an all-Jewish publication, by the way, genius, absolute genius. It was Jew hunt. They were telling, Kirk Douglas is a Jew and the Pope is a Jew and the Emperor of Japan, he's a Jew. Tinkerbell is a Jew. But what they should have been looking for is someone with so-called Jewish DNA, someone I guess a racist would call a Jew. I find this remarkable that a scientific mind could even entertain the idea of a Jew. And then I read the Bible. And apparently God takes this seriously. Although it's anyone's guess who this God actually is that would choose Israel and say, make up the word Jew, and eventually I guess would have to have foreseen, since it's a Mosaic curse, that there would be such a thing as anti-Semitism. Well, when the Jews go after the Jews, that's funny. And Mad Magazine knew it. William Gaines and all the rest. Was Don Martin a Jew? I mean, you eventually have to ask that question if you get sucked into this way of thinking. We mostly are controlled on the topics we're allowed to be us. I have never taken part in that, but of course I have. See, this is the schizoid split that just divides a man into two men. So I believe it's normal to be schizoid. And until you are schizoid, you're really a pansy. Because unless you're schizoid, you're not going to make enough mistakes. You can't be a real man without making mistakes. The idea is to just not hurt anybody. Well, if you do it well, you won't even hurt yourself. That would be a success story. There are none. There's never been a man who just made it through this world without any trouble at all. It literally can't be done. One man who was apparently on his way to proving that you can live in this world without money, that would be Yeshua the Jew. And he was a Jew. He was not an Israeli. He was a Jew. You know why that's so important? There were no Israelis at the time of Jesus. Israel had disappeared, actually into the steppes of Asia. They literally disappeared. Nobody has ever been able to find out where the 10 tribes of Israel disappeared to. It's a mystery much more profound than the tabernacle or the Ark of the Covenant, which is, once you see Han Solo going after the Ark of the Covenant, you've been had. Well, there's such a thing as spy, counter-spy, and there are levels to spy, counter-spy because you're trying to fool the other side. Well, Mad Magazine had stuff on that. So when the Jews hunt the Jews, that is funny. But what they should be hunting for is someone with Jewish DNA, according to God, I guess you'd have to say, But they know it and they accept it, and so they identify themselves. We have this DNA. We're descendants of Abraham. But that's not ever what they say. The Ishmaelites say they're descendants of Abraham, but the Jews never say that because they don't care. They only care about one of the descendants of Abraham, whose name was Israel. Well, all of his tribes are gone except one. There were 12 tribes, and so it is proper to call the Jews by the name of the other tribe which survived with them, which was the tiniest of the tribes, Benjamino. And the current head of the IDF in present modern day Israel, amazingly named, you'd have to say, since there are no Israelis left on earth. Unless they're in Ukraine and possibly in Europe and possibly in Ireland. It's even been suggested they might have gone to Japan. Well, I think men are capable of imagining just about anything they feel like imagining if they don't know. Well, that's science today. What do you know about the edge of space? Well, what do you know about the atom? Well, these are the questions being asked. No, they're not. Not anymore. It's been forgotten for at least 50 years, except we keep it alive because it's a puzzle. But where science is at, we're talking about reality and consciousness. Reality and consciousness. And you can tell the trend. It's going to get religious soon. There's going to be some kind of resurgence of religion, but it's going to be through science. I think it's already started. We have a creation myth. It's just bigger than the earth. It's so much bigger than the earth, right? Think about that for a second. Let me ask you something. Do you know where you are? This is what you ask an insane person or someone who's been traumatized, who's lost a lot of blood or a huge blow to their head. Maybe some of their brains are hanging out their side of their head. And you're trying to find out if they're conscious. One of the first things you ask them is, do you know where you are? Because if they don't know where they are, it's likely their memory is damaged. Because do you know where you are right now? Well, that's my question to you. Yeah, it sounds like I'm treating you as if you might be bonkers or retarded or you just got clubbed to the earth and I'm checking to see if I can help you. Do you know where you are? Maybe I'm not sure your condition, but you're rubbing your head. You know, you're down on your knees and you're holding your head and just doing this. And maybe you vomit a little and I come forward. No, I'm not a paramedic, but there's no one else around. Do you know where you are? Sometimes the question is, can you tell me your name? And really what you're looking for is how long does it take before the person realizes you're asking them a question at all. You look at them and just ask them the simplest thing you can because you don't care what they say as long as they say something. But you're trying to find out if they're in their right mind. That's what you have to do with these modern scientists. It's a remarkable situation that we have a word for scientist, but it has two opposite meanings. And it's just like saying man. In my generation, if you said man, everyone knew you meant women as well. It's just there's never a problem. But then came feminism and the gay movement. And now there's gender identity issues that go all the way to pronouns. You've got to be careful how you address someone. And now there's new rules and there's people who are actually, serious about it. And they want you to comply with, you can't say man anymore. It's like also saying line if you're talking about a circle. Well, the word line has two opposite meanings. The word man has two opposite meanings. Well, the word scientist has two opposite meanings. It's really serious enough to bring out into the open as I do. That is science, is bringing out into the open the facts that you're incapable of treating rationally. They may be things that you already know. It's just that you refuse to think about them. Well, in science, you have to actually know what you're doing. You do have to know where you are. You know why? Because in the true definition of science, this sounds pompous, but it's forced by horrifying lexical constraint, is that when you say scientist, 99%, I'll just say, of an American population, if you say scientist, 99 out of 100 people will have exactly the same image of what is meant by a scientist. They know exactly what a scientist is because they've been told what a scientist is. And if you're told what a word means and you don't use it the way you're told, well, you're disruptive and you've got to be mistreated now. You have to be manhandled. You have to slap, 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 slap. Don't say scientist when you mean scientist. Don't say man when you mean man and woman. Don't say line when you mean two families of lines. But now you have everybody slap, slap, slapping each other, depending on if they're in the 99 out of 100 group, or if that person is I. I stand alone. Absolutely alone. Well, you think that's not going to cause psychological problems? I will just tell you it does. Every time cause psychological problems. As Henry Miller put it, to lift yourself just an inch above this stinking sea of filth requires more energy than you have. You can't get out. You're sinking in stinking mud and there's nothing that can save you. You're already drowned. This is what it looks like to me to look out at my fellow scientists. They're 99 out of 100 and they all know each other, recognize each other, and are scientists. And 99 out of 100 typical Americans, typical as myself, will know exactly what is meant by the word scientist. And I never use the word that way unless I'm talking about false scientists. Scientists who have lost their way to money. Scientists who have lost their way from the beginning. Scientists who have never become scientists for very long and no longer qualify and cannot under any circumstances be called scientists. They're simply not doing what every scientist must do. What is that, dear? What is that, baby? Darling? Pookie? No, you gotta have fun. That's my whole point. Well, that's what I do. I have a whale of a lot of fun. But you have to have it just for yourself. I'm not a comedian. I wish I were. I do try. I project myself as a fun-loving man. And I play games to kill. I'm out to bash your fucking brains in. You sit down to play chess with me, it's the same thing as a UFC death fight. If UFC were allowed, you just kill the man, and then you're proclaimed the winner as soon as one man is choked to death. I picture the first person competing in that, Lex Friedman will be one of the men. But I will not be anywhere near the stadium. That's what these men do. They're cutthroat artists. They're absolutely cutthroat artists, but they're mafiosi. They've pooled their resources so that now an asshole, a professional asshole, such as Neil deGrasse Tyson, is a protected Jew. He's the real Jew. It has nothing to do with his skin color. Anybody who even thinks about skin color is literally a racist. I never do. I never have. I never will. I'm immune. I'm a real scientist. A cut above the others. Better. I'm a better man than Neil deGrasse Tyson. A better man. And what that means is, implicitly, you don't want the youth, the innocents, to be listening to an asshole talk for science. And listen to how my voice changed. Don't I sound like an asshole? This is the message of John le Carre. I used to say John le Carre, that's incorrect. Then I said John le Carre, that is also incorrect. It means the square. We're talking about David Cornwell, who lives in Cornwall, or did until just about a decade ago he passed. What an amazing writer. The point being, when he talks about the Cold War, which is really part of the ideological war, is the Cold War, the spy versus spy, Mad Magazine, yeah. Find the spy, find the spy, find the Jew, find the spy. What I was going to say about finding the Jew, instead of picking out all the Jews that you never would have guessed were Jews, which is what Mad Magazine did, try to find a Jew who knows that he or she, he or she, I'm forced to say that now. I can't just say he in this context. Well, it's a form of advancing your awareness. I'm totally in favor of that. Although I make fun of it, of course, because it never should have happened. But then again, we never should have started saying he in the first place. Should we have done, as the British would complete that sentence. Drink a shitload of water. I told you I'm a fun-loving man. Drink a fuck of a lot. That's how you should say it, because that has a lot more to do with liquid going into the mouth, doesn't it? Fuck. Oh yeah, liquid can go into the mouth of a male or female. Oh yeah. I caught up. Oh, are you asking, would I do that? Do what? Tell me. Can you do what? Oh, that, really? Would you? Just ask the question back. It's like asking, what they're doing is they're saying, what's your name? Do you know where you are? They're testing you for sanity in their fucking universe. And you have to respond. Well, I recommend going lighthearted on that. Turn it into a goddamn joke. Turn it back on them so they see their own hypocrisy. Oh, have you ever been tempted that way to do that unnatural act? You don't have to say yes or no. You don't have to play their goddamn game. That's just an ant touching feelers with another ant to see if it's a red ant like itself or a black ant, which is, it needs to be killed. Because what they're looking for is for you to make a face go, fuck no. Then they're like, oh, okay. Now they know that who you are. You're an enemy. That's right. Well, it's the same thing in science. Were I to meet, let's say, Brian Greene, a man I detest, I say that I detest him. Do I? Of course not. But as a figurehead, yes. The image of Brian Greene has got to be shot down. He knows that. He doesn't care. He's a Jew. Actually, you could say he's an Israeli. He's not really there. Jews cannot be Israelis. They're not Israelis. They're Jews. You could say, though, they are one of the tribes of Israel, yes. Well, that doesn't make them Israel. Israel was literally deported into Assyria and then disappeared into the steppes of Asia to the northeast. The Chinese were already way over there, so it's not like they migrated and became the Chinese. But nobody knows where they went. There's no record of them, they were finally massacred, just ethnic cleansing in Assyria. They just got rid of it. No. The Israelis just disappeared. You could check. I did. I had to. I was a Bible scholar for 30 years. I had to find out, if I could, where the Israeli tribes disappeared to. You know what it says in the Bible? God said, get lost. Well, apparently, in this one case, the God of Israel, which is the God who said that, according to their own prophets, it's remarkable what the Israelis put down into their own prophecy records. It's like, we got to hold on to this prophecy of Isaiah. I'm tempted to just read, just the opening paragraph of Isaiah. You miserable brats! I told you, you've driven me to whatever God would say, if he was talking with them. But the prophet's just reporting, a paraphrase. It's like, you miserable. Even the cattle are smarter than you. It's really how the God of Israel talked to Israel. If you keep this up, you know what I said to Moses. I'll do it. I'll do it. And they're like, nay, hey. Okay, that's it. Assyrians come marching in, just herd them away. And they got lost and never came back. Meanwhile, Judah got deported a little while later, as reported by Hezekiah. The foremost of all the prophets is Ezekiel, whom you know from Pulp Fiction. And I know that's all you know about Ezekiel. Oh, that's that whatever it was that Samuel Jackson said in Pulp Fiction just before he drilled those boys with lead. Yeah, that's an American. Well, so am I. Have I watched football? Yes. I've watched it with my family. Football. If you've seen any of my videos, or at least 700 of them, you would have noticed that every now and then I just rage against football like it's the curse of the earth. I say that only a retarded fairy, I don't say this about the football players. They're in good shape and they make good money. I say, God bless you, football players. But the spectators, I would not even shit on their faces. I would not take the time to piss in their open mouth. You watch football, really? Well, my mother watched football. My father watched football. My family watched football. We're a baseball family. My father played professional baseball for 14 years. But they watched football and baseball and basketball and pretty much any other sport. Well, not, if it's from the 1950s, which is those three. Not ice hockey. No. We don't play ice hockey down here. We play football. Well, I think that anybody who watches football, as I have hundreds of times, is a retarded fairy. And so I'm calling myself the king of retarded fairies because I watch football. Well, I'm a black Irishman. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm not going to play with you because I'm different. Well, that's what it means to become a scientist. Later on, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to play with you because I look down on you. I no longer can sink to your level. I'm going to go above you and stay above you in every way. Except the ways that you choose. Go ahead, build your muscles. Get some tattoos. Hey, have your face painted. Cut off all your hair or make a mohawk. Call yourself a industrial, whatever, scientist, warrior. You're a killer. You're a maniac. You work 60 hours a week. You don't get enough sleep. You can't take care of yourself. So you wear a nice shirt and tie. Cover your face with dark glasses. But inside, well, this is going to be you, I'm telling you. You have to. It's the only way to become a man. How do I know that? Because I'm the king of the retarded fairies, and that's an hour. So I think I've given you enough science, haven't I? It's cutthroat. It has to be. But it doesn't have to be mean. What it means is you have to stay on top. And when it's noticed that you are on top, make it humorous. Keep it light. But you never stop saying the truth. It doesn't make any difference what the other man's game is to throw you off the rails. He can't. Or she can't. I don't care who it is. If I say that I discovered a new number system that constitutes spherical geometry, and now I'm going to show you in GeoGebra the true geometry of the complex number system. I just learned it from Lori Gardi. I think you noticed that I have her right at the top of this page. So let's complete this and make it an even 100 minutes. Lori Gardi, I got to know because I was trying to understand the term, which is a two-word term, angular frequency. Angular frequency. This was on the order, it's over a year ago. And I stumbled on Lori Gardi. It's actually more like 2 years ago, although I had known of Lori for 3 years. I've known of Lori for 3 years. And, well, it's been between 2 and 3 years. I'm sorry to digress, but part of this presentation is to test the waters. This is my only script. It's over here. Now, Lori Gardi explained to me what Wikipedia could not explain. And it turns out it's an extremely difficult matter in physics to know what angular momentum is. Angular frequency and angular momentum, of course, are very closely related, obviously, because you're using the word angular. That refers to a circle. Well, that's a closed line. I proved that it's the universe's definition of continuity. That can be extended to the sphere. It can also be extended to hyperspheric space, which I discovered, along with the spherical number system, which is a two-component number system that replaces the complex plane because it integrates it. We always knew that there was something strange about the complex plane. Well, it can be fully explained with geometry, which I've never seen done. Lori just showed it to me yesterday, and it's pure genius. Absolutely pure genius. Lori Gardi deserves some kind of medal or prize or award just for that. But I'm telling you about a second thing that she did. She has more stuff too. And her ohm particle approach to conscious space is dead on. She's on a much stronger vector than even Dr. Alexander Unziker. And Lori Gardi turned me on to Ken Wheeler, the magnetist, who is not off of my radar because I believe Lori's right. Ken says the damnedest things about magnetism. It's obvious he has some insight. But it's funny how you analyze one scientist at a time. Dr. Unziker is on one vector, which I can absolutely characterize perfectly. Lori Gardi is on the most correct vector. And Ken Wheeler has no orientation whatsoever. He's gone to science. He always was a philosopher. And some men are crossovers. Tim Maudlin believes that he's into the philosophy of science. I believe he's proved that he's doing his best to be that. Isn't that a strange thing to concentrate on? Well, what I'm going to help you with is to understand the complex numbers in the same way that I helped you to understand the calculus. And here's where it gets potentially adversarial. Not between you and me, but between me and whoever will be looking over your shoulder in the future. This is always whom I address, as well as you. I'm trying to give you the secrets of the universe that you need in order to survive the right way. Whatever way that is, I'll give you the tools so that you can answer your questions. That's my goal for humans. But as for professional, or what I call industrial, anyone who gets money for doing science in any way, who gets money for that, you can't possibly be above board. There is something wrong with you, and it will show up, and there are no exceptions. The closest to an exception is Kurt Jai Mungal, but I believe he's being turned to the dark side of the Force, and I don't think he can be recovered. He needs money. Always remember, these men are not trying to steal money. They're not greedy. They're playing three-card Monty as above the board as they can, playing by the rules of their own system, trying not to hurt each other, or certainly, except at certain critical moments, they'll cut each other's throat for a nickel. If it has to do with funding. Because they need money. And you know why. Darwin told you why. Darwin proved the existence of money. That's what controls human evolution. It always has. Is this strange concept of money. It does not go with science at all. Or you get something you're not going to want. Well, that's what we all got. However, that does not abrogate the original game for a rational man. And if you are still one of those, and we all like to think we are, don't look for it in Neil deGrasse Tyson. He sold his soul. He sold his soul. And that's okay. Leading me back full circuit. If I were in the presence of any of these men that I named, I would not be singing the tune that I am to you right now. Does that make me a hypocrite? Darling, unless you master the art of hypocrisy, you cannot survive the scientific forum. You must be a hypocrite, or you can't play their game. And they own the game. It's like football. Maybe it started out as innocent. You used a round ball, and you didn't bend over like a homo to hike it up past your nuts and anus with two waiting hands, with everyone else lined up with helmets on, or a leather cap, or nothing at all. Or you're playing naked with nothing but shorts. You're barefoot, and it's a fight to the death. And you hike the innocent, well, you don't hike. You stand there like in rugby, and you flip it back. And then you try to kill each other, naked. You're not allowed to use a club. You just use your fists. You just start pounding the shit out of the other side. You just go at it. While the guy with the ball is trying to, either run with it, in which case he's going to be beaten to death, or he throws it. People are chasing the guy to stop the Hail Mary. Every pass is called a Mary. So you're throwing the Mary, and it's spelled Merry, and you're only allowed to play at Christmas time. So it's Merry Xmas. You use an X. Because it means blot out the consciousnesses of those assholes who have the ball. Get them! Because it's the football of the super thermonuclear device to destroy Israel. To destroy the Middle East. Just make it a crater. So all the Israelis fulfill the Old Testament prophecy as they must. Oh, you're Israelis? Well, I don't know if you read the Old Testament, but that's why we have thermonuclear weapons, Israel. And it's time for everyone to get together, leaving Israel out. However, I wouldn't do that. This is politics. I wouldn't do that. Not China, Russia, the United States, and Brazil, and India, and Pakistan, and France, and Germany, and maybe Italy. Get them all, not Portugal and not Switzerland, no. Not Belarus, not Ukraine, no. The big boys. Australia, no. They're south of the equator. So get everybody together and just, look at Israel and say, well, but you see, if you did that, you'd kill all the Palestinians too. And that's not fair. So somebody has to go in there and rescue the Palestinians. Well, that's in Revelation. Gog, actually I believe it's Magog. Magog will invade Israel in the latter days. Oh, there have been double trilogies written about this. The Revelation series, these are books 800 pages thick in paperback. You can get 6 of them on Revelation. The Apocalypse, oh yeah, it's all in there too, and it's pretty good. It's not bad enough. They really are pansies. They're faggots, like every other fucking American writer today. But whatever, I do watch football. Am I a hypocrite? You have to be. Does Jesus hate hypocrites? He said so. He hates them. So can you be a Christian and be a scientist? No. There's no way on God's green earth you can be both. Because you have to have a killer instinct. You have to want these men dead. It's intellectual. You want to kill them, just like in chess. It's not football. We don't have muscles. We can't hurt you with our bodies. You can kick sand in our faces. You do. In the old days. Now you worship us. Well, you shouldn't have done either. We're just like you, except we're better. And that's what pisses you off, is that I'm better than you. Because I do get the answers. So let's complete this. We have 2 minutes and 40 seconds to wrap this up in exactly 100 minutes of almost no science at all. But you can see that I'm about to give you the goods of all the goods. Lori Gardi not only gave me the true definition of angular momentum and corrected Wikipedia. That is on record now. She has corrected Wikipedia a second time. She corrected them on their definition of the complex number plane. And I've never seen anything like it. Lori Gardi is so far ahead of Ken Wheeler that I'm almost ashamed to say that she was the one who turned me on, as we say in the acid world. She turned me on to Ken Wheeler, who's a magnificent human being. I have nothing against any of these men. I'll bet that Brian Greene and I would fucking party for 3 nights straight. I swear to God I'm serious. Neil deGrasse Tyson, if I can get him to laugh, I'll bet he would like me. I'm serious the fuck to death, to the truth. Lex Friedman, no. No, he's in the upper caste now. He's so far beyond me, he'll never look in my direction again. He's filthy rich. And he also has a black belt, I believe, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's a very, very difficult goal to achieve. He is a Russian Jew. A Russian Jew whose father still speaks with a Russian Jewish accent. And Lex's father is a plasma physicist. I have no idea who Neil deGrasse Tyson's father is or how Neil deGrasse grew up. But I can tell you this. Whatever I say against these men as scientists, I never, ever mean the man, except Larry Krauss. Larry, and this is what I'm teaching you in this very important lesson. This may be the most important video in the human sense, which don't forget you're human, okay? You need human answers at the end, not numbers. But what I'll teach you is you need geometry so that you understand the universe before you croak, so that you can finally get the full. It's so far beyond orgasm. This is why I don't like sexual freedom. it's because you're jackasses. You're missing out on the real deal. This is the real deal. So stay tuned. That's 100 minutes. We'll be right back.